wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
I can't go back.
Welcome to the She Became Visible podcast. I'm your host, Renee Steelman. This podcast is my story. It's your story. It's our story. It's all the stories of all the women who one day knew that it was time to remember who they were, who they are, and stand up and be seen.
Hello. Happy July 1st, everyone. This is going to be a very quick She Became Visible because I just want to probably get in trouble and voice my political opinion. I don't have enough political knowledge to really dig in deep to the political things, but I do know intuitively that when I watched that debate on Thursday, I had to look away. And I'm not that kind of a person. I mean, give me a good train wreck. I'm right there. Somebody falls off their porch, I'm laughing my head off. Okay. So I don't usually have the inclination to turn away from a train wreck, but that was so embarrassing. And it was embarrassing on both sides. So what I am confused about is why more people aren't talking about Robert Kennedy Jr. And it's almost like there's an actual planned conspiracy to keep him out. Now, again, like I say, I'm not a big political person. I don't really even follow politics that much until this year. And this year, I am really into it. And mostly it's because I'm concerned about women's health care. And I'm afraid, and I'm the first to admit it, I'm turning into a one-choice person. There's a lot of things to consider here: immigration, inflation, the cost of living, jobs. There's so many things to consider, but I'm afraid that I have to zero in on women's health care and the abortion rights, and that's where I'm going. But watching that debate, I just feel as though there is another option, and I'm curious to see. And I don't understand even people like Jon Stewart, who I love. Jon Stewart, he's brilliant, and Bill Maher. These two men, I feel, are really looking at both sides and trying to bring us the best of both sides. But both of them are really negative against Bobby Kennedy Jr. And I can't help but agree with him. So my little short podcast today is to tell you there is another option. And he's not an evil cuckoo head, okay? And I just want to show you a Facebook post that was made. I actually have the whole debate saved. But you know what? We're not going to spend another 2.5 hours going through this. And when I found this Facebook post, I decided, you know what? He puts the whole thing in a nutshell, so I'm going to let him talk. So let me show you what I think is brilliant.
And Team Kennedy, and today we're going to be talking about what in the actual just happened.
They're going to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
I didn't have sex with a porn star.
Just this last Thursday, President Trump and President Biden debated on CNN. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was excluded from this debate because CNN colluded with the Trump and the Biden camps to create criteria that was essentially impossible for any third party to qualify. For instance, CNN said in order to qualify for their debate, each candidate needed to be on the ballot in enough states to equal 270 electoral votes. But here's the thing. neither Trump nor Biden qualify for any electoral votes at all. I mean, they're not even on the ballot yet. But either way, they had their debate on CNN, and Bobby had the real debate, which streamed to over 11 million people. So let's go over some of the highlights.
We have 1,000 trillionaires in America with the COVID,
President Trump and President Biden were not presidential.
This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong.
And it didn't get any better from there.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway.
And you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
Okay,
let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
Did you hear that? That to me was, I mean, it's hard to pick out what the most embarrassing thing was, but that was like, even the moderators were like, let's not act like children. To get into a playground fight over your golf handicap when both of them, I mean, please, I'll take you on. Meet me in the back. I mean, both of you, come on. That was so embarrassing. Okay, let's go on.
To a specific.
Oof. Yeah, it was rough to watch. And then there was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He answered the questions that were asked, he spoke cogently and confidently, offered real solutions to the problems we all face, and he even cracked up a bit during some of Trump's antics, which, come on, he's a funny guy. All right, so as an example, let's look at one particular question that Jake Tapper asked. He pointed out correctly that America is in the throes of an addiction crisis and asked specifically what the candidates would do about it. Trump said this.
We now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China.
And Biden said this.
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together.
And Kennedy laid out his proposal to legalize marijuana federally, which would create
$5 billion in revenue. I'm going to dedicate that money to building drug rehabilitation farms, wellness farms, and restoration farms in rural areas all over this country where any American can go for free to deal with depression, suicidal behavior, alcoholism, drug addiction to illegal drugs, but also addiction to SSRIs, to benzos, to Adderall. It's a generation that is alienated, that is dispossessed, that is depressed, that is suicidal, that is disconnected from community. And that's why they're turning to drugs. And we need to deal with that problem.
The biggest takeaway is that as a country, we are at a massive political, socioeconomic, and spiritual inflection point. 2024 is now a two-way race between President Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And if we vote for hope for our future, Bobby will be the next president. But to get there, we need your help. If you can contribute $5 or $10, please do so by clicking the link below. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I am going to show you a little bit about therealdebate.com, which is where RFK Jr. set up a debate. John Stossel was the moderator, and he would answer the exact same questions that were given to Trump and Biden. And the interesting thing was these two men have, we have a current president, we have a past president. So they were each talking about their record. And so this is a guy that's never been president, but he's telling us what he would do if he is voted in as president. And the interesting thing too was he pointed out CNN. It's a corporation. They controlled it. It's a money-making corporation. And he pointed that out. And I thought, people of my generation that grew up with Walter Cronkite and NBC, CBS, we just kind of automatically think, we kind of go down that road that these are just news organizations that are free and they're just here to give us the news and they're not biased in any way. But then you start realizing, wait, no, these are streaming services. These are privately owned corporations. And that kind of puts a new light on the whole thing. So let me see if I can find that and show you.
Our country, it is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he's the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant, and the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Mr. Kennedy, the question was, people feel worse off because of inflation.
Yeah, and I want to thank everybody for being here and for this opportunity, and thank you, John. I also want to thank Elon Musk for live streaming this on X. CNN made some statements suggesting that might be, that he may get sued for that, and I'm very, very grateful for the courage that he's shown to protect freedom of speech in this country. I want to just orient us a little bit about why we're here tonight, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm complaining, because this isn't a personal issue. This is something that should be very troubling for our country. What happened with this debate? My uncle gave the first televised debate in 1960. Ever since then, the debate has been run by nonpartisan organizations, the League of Women Voters till 1988, and then the debating commission thereafter. And this is the first time that a private corporation owns the debate. And it's troubling because CNN is making tens of millions of dollars from this debate. And so they have an incentive to go ahead and collude with the two presidential candidates whose main purpose was to keep me off the stage. And again, this isn't a personal issue. This is something that's important for our democracy, because Americans feel like the system is rigged. And this is this collusion with a corporation, for-profit corporation, that both those campaigns are going to be pumping in tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising. So it's all a big payoff. This is exactly the kind of merger of state and corporate power that I'm running in order to oppose. And the Americans believe that the system is rigged against them because it is. And this is an example of how badly rigged it is.
Mr. Kennedy, we're following the rules here. Your 2 minutes are up.
You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you.
It's your show. You should get an introduction.
I got to follow up.
We're going back to the debate.
I got to follow up, right?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up.
Okay. So I love the way that he explained that. And I think that's something that, again, especially people in my demographic, we just assume that this is a nonprofit, public broadcasting, NBC, ABC news thing. And then you find out, oh, wait, no, this debate was financed by a private corporation. And the fact that they wouldn't let him participate is mind-boggling. And again, I don't know enough about, I'm old enough to have been there and to listen to a lot of this, even with his uncle, JFK. I was probably 7 years old. I can't even remember the dates, but I remember, and all my uncles and aunts and my parents, everyone talking about it. I was there for the assassination. I was in 4th grade, and I was there when Martin Luther King was assassinated and when his dad was assassinated. I've lived through all of these things, and I remember the news broadcasts. So the fact that this is now being handled by a private corporation is really, it's disturbing, and it should be disturbing to you. And now listening to the follow-up from this broadcast, and the people, half of them right afterwards, even people that are very democratic, they're like, we got to get rid of Biden. We've got to convince him to drop out. And now a couple days later, everyone's like, well, you know what? Everybody has a bad day. Oh my gosh. So let me see if I can find the next clip that I want to show you here.
Not
whatever you want.
according to the woman.
That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank
To give you the same question, Mr. Kennedy, should there be any limit on a late-term abortion?
Yeah, I believe it should be limited. Late term should be limited. Absolutely. That's what was permitted under Roe v. Wade. That's what every European country has the same law, and that law makes sense. If that baby is fully viable outside of the womb, the state has an absolute interest in protecting it.
To the issue of immigration and border security.
Okay. So I'm going to end with that because this is, as I said, I'm kind of a one interest person politically. Right now it's for women's health care and the abortion rights. And I'm here to say, listen to what RFK Jr. said, completely viable outside the womb. That's a huge thing. And my friend and I, who I'm going to have on my podcast, we were discussing this because as the mother of a severely disabled child that I cared for 37 years, there was so much malpractice that went on for his birth, my prenatal care, all of this. There was so much neglect. And as a young mom, I was 32 when I had my 6th child. I was trusting the medical professionals that I was going to, and none of them did their job. None of them told me what I needed to know. None of them were aware of the baby that I was growing inside of my uterus was suffering with a diaphragmatic hernia, which could have been taken care of. And that when he was born, if I would not have had him in 1985, if I would have had him in 1975, he would have immediately died. They did not have the surgical procedures needed to fix a diaphragmatic hernia in 1985. And that's a scary thought. Now, what they did was miraculous. And at 32, as a young mom who loved children, if I would have been given the option to not have them do everything they could to keep him alive, I would, of course, said, yes, do everything, absolutely do everything. But they never gave me the information that I needed to make these informed choices. And when they said viable, what they're saying is, if you have a child that's born at 22 weeks, 24 weeks, are they viable outside of the uterus without medical intervention? Because even though you can keep a baby alive, and you can keep a baby on a respirator and all kinds of, my son had chest tubes. He had, I don't know if they're doing tracheotomies, everything that they're doing to keep these babies alive. And then once they get them to a certain weight and a certain diagnosis, they will send these children home on respirators for the rest of their lives, completely nonverbal, completely almost in a vegetative state, but they're alive because they're on machines. And then you've got 24/7 caregiving with no financial help for these families to do that. So it's a very complicated issue. It's not a one mandate issue. It has to be individually mandated. And that's where I'm at. So I'm encouraging you today to go to therealdebate.com, listen to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and make a decision that there is another choice. There is another choice, and look into it. You're going to have to do it on your own. Nobody on media is going to help you do this. You're going to have to be an individual critical thinker. So that's my message for today. Happy July. I hope all of you have a fabulous 4th of July. And I will be with you again. Our next subject, we're going to be talking about the financial situation with the Mormon Church and comparing it to the Catholic Church. So that should be very interesting. So have a great week. Have a great 4th of July. We have some fabulous plans with our family, and I hope you do as well. Alrighty, bye-bye.